Aunt, you don't have to push yourself to come to the wedding next week. It's okay. That's what Emily said to me while she was taking care of me at my house after I got discharged from the hospital. I'm planning to have a caregiver come to assist me in the future, but the application at the office hasn't been approved yet, so for a few days, people like Emily and Susan's husband will be coming over to my house in turns. I was unsure of what to answer Emily. I wondered if me attending the wedding would be a nuisance, and I was reluctant to make people feel awkward out of concern for me. It's a shame that she lost her sight, but there are convenient tools nowadays that allow her to live quite normally. She just lost her vision and about the wedding. It's okay, you weren't seriously injured in the traffic accident, and you can move around now. You want to see my daughter's big day, right? Oh, right, you can't see. I couldn't see what kind of expression Susan had on her face, but I felt she was desperately trying to suppress her laughter, and anger welled up inside me. I stood up and said to Susan, "Take me to the bathroom," and she grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the bathroom. I was angry at Susan. But I felt that if I showed it, it wouldn't be right, so I let her lead me by the arm. On the way, I accidentally kicked something soft. I heard Emily's small scream of Bella from behind me, and she was doing something at my feet. Oh dear, what are you doing? You kicked Bella because she was at your feet. You have to be careful how you walk since you can't see. I had felt like I kicked something soft, but Bella wasn't the kind of dog to bark or run away when people approached. Oh, and look at what you're wearing, sis. You've got a lot of wrinkles in your clothes. It's hard to manage your appearance when you can't see, right? In a world where I couldn't tell light from dark, I had a feeling Susan was smiling. I tried not to show my frustration and, trembling with anger deep inside, I choked out, "I'll go to the wedding. My name is Jennifer, 56 years old. Living the single life by choice, embracing my freedom. After work, I cook for myself, hit the gym, or dive into a good book. On days off, you'll find me at the movies. I reckon I'm leading a pretty fulfilling life." But my sister Susan, who lives nearby, doesn't quite see it that way. She sometimes says things that seem to belittle my lifestyle, which bothers me a bit, but I think we have a good sisterly bond overall. Susan occasionally drops by my apartment unannounced, rummaging through my fridge and taking whatever she likes. Being 6 years younger, I've always doted on her, but as we've gotten older, she's become increasingly presumptuous. Still, Susan has her own family and financial struggles, so I've decided not to make a fuss about a little extra food from my fridge. Then one day, Susan showed up at my place with a white dog, without any prior notice. "This little one's name is Bella, isn't she cute?" Susan said, showing me the small white chihuahua in a little cage. The chihuahua flicked its large ears and glanced at me with its big eyes before quickly looking away and curling up. I vaguely responded, "Sure." To be honest, I'm not much of a dog person. Maybe it's because I was chased by a big dog in my neighborhood when I was young, but even small dogs make me nervous. Sitting behind Susan was her daughter Emily, looking sad as she gazed at the dog. I've known Emily since she was a child. She's beautiful, just like Susan, but their personalities are quite different. If I had to describe Susan in one word, it would be arrogant, whereas Emily is humble. I've always found Emily to be a sweet and kind niece, always treating me with gentleness. Emily, nudged by Susan, seemed to have something to ask me and awkwardly began to speak. "Aunt Jennifer, I have a favor to ask. I came here today hoping you would take care of Bella." I was momentarily confused, tilting my head in puzzlement, when Susan took Bella out of the cage, lifted her, and forcibly pressed her against my chest. "Look how cute she is. Living alone, you must feel lonely, right? She'll be good company for you." I wasn't feeling lonely, though. The story goes like this. Susan bought Bella, the chihuahua, against her husband's wishes, so it became Emily's responsibility. But Emily is getting married soon and will be leaving home. She wants to take Bella to her new home, but her fiancé is allergic to dogs and can't keep her. Susan's husband is a kind man, but he's often away on business and can't take care of the dog. "Why don't you take care of her, Susan? Just for a week, please, just for 1 week." I sighed softly. I could see right through Susan's plan to leave Bella with me indefinitely, but I felt sorry for the puppy that was so unwanted and reluctantly agreed. Emily repeatedly said, "Thank you, Aunt Jennifer," while she looked at Bella with a reluctant gaze and stroked her head. "Keep next Sunday free, okay? I have a bunch of dog stuff at my place, like a dog crate and other supplies that we'll need to bring over. I'll pick you up in my car and we'll transport them to your place. After Susan and Emily left, I noticed Bella trembling slightly on the living room floor, so I turned on the heating. Even as the room warmed up, Bella continued to tremble, staring at me with big, wide eyes. Are you shaking because you're scared, not cold? Well, I'm a bit scared of you too, so I guess that makes us even, right? While I was preparing Bella's food in the kitchen, she sat still, watching my every move. Every time I moved, she'd turn her little face to follow me, her big eyes tracking my movements. But Bella remained sitting on the floor, never coming close to me. As night fell and I placed an old cushion near Bella, she weakly tried to climb onto it. Casually watching her struggle while I watched TV, I finally realized why Bella had been sitting in the same spot all day. I see. I picked up Bella's small body and placed her on the cushion, where she contentedly buried her face and eventually fell asleep. There was a subtle issue with her hind legs, not visible at first glance. Either born with a disability or unable to walk and climb properly, Bella required special care. The realization that Susan had left me with a dog needing extra attention without explanation irked me a bit, but I also understood that it would be hard for Emily, about to get married, to take care of her. Despite being a person who disliked dogs, I found myself able to touch and hold Bella, a quiet and well-behaved dog who never barked. When I returned from work, Bella would be sitting on the cushion, waiting for me with her big, dewy eyes. She didn't wag her tail to welcome me home. Just sat and watched me, emitting a mysterious aura that was hard to read. Day after day, being gazed at by those big eyes, I found myself gradually drawn to Bella. Then, as time passed and Emily's wedding day approached, something happened on a sunny day. I had an accident and shards of glass from a shattered windshield entered my eyes, leaving me blind. I was bedridden in the hospital, but when I regained consciousness, I had no idea where I was, let alone that I was blind. I wondered why everything was so dark around me, and eventually, after a doctor's explanation, I understood that I was blind, which left me uncontrollably trembling. It felt unreal, like something out of a dream. In a world where I could see nothing, I confirmed my own existence by touching my fingers one by one, inexplicably overcome with sadness. Being single with no parents, Susan and, more so, her husband and Emily took great care of me during my hospital stay. My boss and a few colleagues visited me, asking generic questions like, "How are you feeling?" "I can't work together anymore with my current condition, so please let me resign." When I said this aloud, the atmosphere seemed to be enveloped in calmness, and I felt a slight weight lift off my shoulders. Susan's husband patiently explained how I, now disabled, would receive support and live my life going forward, and promised to continue helping me. "Aunt Jennifer, it's okay if you can't make it to the wedding next week. Don't push yourself." Emily said this to me while she was taking care of me at my house after I was discharged from the hospital. "We're planning to have caregivers come, but since the application hasn't been approved by the office yet, for a few days, people like Emily and Susan's husband will take turns coming to my house." I was torn about what to respond to her. I wondered if my attending the wedding would be a bother, and I was hesitant to make them feel awkward out of concern for me. I could feel Susan bustling around me. Working as a caregiver, she has experience with people with disabilities. Apart from taking care of my daily needs, she was very knowledgeable about disability applications and support from the office, and I was grateful for her help in many ways. However, being familiar with disabilities both personally and professionally, Susan sometimes spoke to me in a rather harsh manner. "It's unfortunate that you lost your sight, but there are convenient tools now that let you live pretty normally," Susan said, her voice slightly elevated with pride as she named several tools designed to assist those with visual impairments. "It hasn't been long since I lost my sight. About the wedding." "It's okay, the traffic accident didn't cause you major injuries, and you can move now, so don't miss it. You want to see your niece's big day, right?" "Oh, you can't see." I couldn't see Susan's face, but I sensed she was trying to suppress her laughter, and anger welled up inside me. I stood up and said to Susan, "Take me to the bathroom," and she grabbed my arm and led me there. Having lived in my house for many years, it's frustrating that I can't even navigate it now without sight, unable to figure out where I am without help. I was angry at Susan. But I felt that showing my anger wasn't the way to live, so I let her lead me. Along the way, I accidentally kicked something soft. Behind me, Emily exclaimed, "Bella." She was doing something at my feet.
Oh no, what are you doing? You just kicked Bella because she was at your feet. You have to be careful with your steps since you can't see.
I couldn't tell if I really had kicked Bella, feeling only a soft sensation. But Bella wasn't the kind of dog to bark or run away from people.
And look at what you're wearing, sis. You've got a lot of wrinkles in your clothes. It's hard to manage your appearance when you can't see, right?
In a world where I couldn't tell light from dark, I felt like Susan was smiling. I tried not to show my frustration and, trembling with deep anger inside, I squeezed out, "I'll go to the wedding." Hearing this, Susan sounded pleased, thanked me, and then said she'd like me to give a speech at the wedding too. She was getting excited about making the wedding a touching event, where her visually impaired sister would come to celebrate. Emily and Susan's husband tried to stop her from making unnecessary arrangements, but Susan was too excited. Listening to her, I decided to share a bit of my pain with her. I grasped Susan's hand tightly and smiled. "I hope it's a beautiful ceremony." After that, I began visiting the hospital regularly for rehabilitation, receiving psychological support to adapt to my vision loss. They suggested using assistive devices and technology to enhance my quality of life as a person who was completely blind. I was particularly intrigued by the mention of braille labels, braille watches, and voice recognition technology that could operate various devices. I also started desperately practicing to get a feel for things around me, aiming to learn non-visual methods and techniques for daily activities like housework, shopping, and cooking. I was training hard to navigate freely around my room, but sometimes I still accidentally kicked Bella. When I lost my sight, Emily had said she would find a new home for Bella, but now Bella's presence had become a source of emotional support for me.
No, please, Emily, let me take care of her.
But you're going through a tough time yourself, and this dog has her legs.
I know. But I really want to be with her.
On lonely nights, I fumble to find Bella and hold her close, then we both crawl under the covers together. I've started to fall asleep gently stroking Bella's quiet, non-barking, and non-aggressive back legs. Both Bella and I have our disabilities, mine in vision, and hers in her legs. I can't prepare her food anymore or take her for walks in my arms. On the other hand, the chances of Bella becoming a guide dog are slim. She can barely walk properly and hasn't barked even once. Feeling as if neither of us is needed by the world, I hug Bella's body tightly, overwhelmed with loneliness. One night, when rain started pouring, the sound of it pattering in my ears kept me awake. I buried my face in Bella's body, focusing on her heartbeat through her warm fur, and finally found peace to fall asleep. On the day of Emily's wedding, I decided to head to the venue with a guide called an escort assistant, whom I usually rely on.
"All right. I'll see you later then,"
I said, leaving the escort assistants behind and using my white cane to make my way to the entrance of the venue alone. Once a staff member at the venue guided me to the waiting room. Susan tapped my shoulder and said, "Wow, you made it here without falling over."
"Today, I want everyone to be moved by your appearance, sis. Can you talk about how you've been adapting to your new situation with the support of many people?"
Adapting to a new situation?
Yes, just like Emily and her husband are starting a new life. Say something like you've been inspired by their new chapter, and I'll wrap it up.
As I remained silent, Susan moved away and then returned, placing a small glass in my hand. "It's alcohol," she said, to which I immediately pushed the glass back, saying, "No, thanks." I hadn't had a drink since losing my sight. Not that I dislike it, but I just never felt the urge to drink. Susan forcefully pushed the glass back towards my chest, saying, "It's rude not to drink at a celebration," then leaned in close and whispered in my ear.
"You know, sis, don't you think disabled people are like caterpillars?"
"What?"
"They look unpleasant, and if you touch them carelessly, you get hurt. You have to prove that you're a harmless caterpillar to live from now on."
Chills ran down my spine. Susan quickly said, "Maybe that was too much," and laughed, tapping my shoulder, almost making me drop the glass. Eventually, Susan led me to the bride's room where Emily, dressed in a beautiful white gown, was sitting, as Susan described.
"Look, isn't she gorgeous?"
As Susan walked away toward Emily, I leaned against the wall, feeling a bit anxious. Soon, someone touched my shoulder. It was the guide assistant, a man who had brought me here.
"What? Boss, why are you here?"
This guide assistant was actually Susan's boss at her workplace, not usually working in the field, but he had come especially because I had asked him.
"I've heard about the situation from Susan. It seems she's been quite rude to you, Jennifer, he started.
That's not true. We're sisters, so we're just straightforward with each other. Her boss immediately cut me off. Don't lie. I had reported to Susan's boss how she had repeatedly belittled me since I became blind. Moreover, the recent car accident, caused by Susan's driving mistake, had been blamed on me. I heard from Mom that the accident was your fault. She said you forced her to overtake the car ahead because she was driving too slowly.
Wait, that's,
In the darkness, I sensed Susan's agitation. I remembered encouraging her after the accident that blinded me, telling her, don't worry about it. It's nobody's fault. I had been told by Emily that Susan was blaming the accident on me and telling our relatives about it, so I no longer felt the need to be considerate towards Susan. I reported all of Susan's actions to her boss, who became furious and showed up at the event like this. Susan's boss said, "This behavior is unacceptable for someone involved in caregiving. I will consider severe disciplinary action." To this, Susan suddenly shouted back, "Don't be ridiculous." That shout seemed to be a signal, and Susan's husband and Emily's fiancé entered the room. In fact, this timing was planned in consultation with Susan's boss, aiming to have a confrontation at this moment. The bride's room filled up as relatives invited to the wedding gathered, following my thorough approach. My relatives harshly scolded Susan, saying, "You caused Jennifer to lose her sight with your driving, and yet you behave like this. Shame on you, shame." While many relatives confronted Susan, her husband shouted, "Everyone, I am truly sorry for today."
Susan, we're getting a divorce. What? What are you talking about? Are you crazy? You've said such terrible things about your own sister after she became disabled. If I became sick or incapacitated, would you treat me the same? I can't live with you anymore if that's the case.
Susan let out an absurdly loud cry, taken aback by the sudden divorce declaration, but was drowned out by the many voices of condemnation surrounding her, and she rushed towards me.
What the heck, sis? It's Emily's wedding, and you're trying to ruin it? I had no such intention, I just wanted everyone to understand how I feel. But why, on Emily's wedding day?
Today, I proposed this plan to get back at my mother. Hearing this, Susan's voice weakened to a feeble "what?" and she fell silent. Emily, who harbored intense disgust for her mother's behavior towards me, her disabled aunt, said firmly, "I never want to be involved with you again." "Mom, remember the first day I brought Bella home?" "Bella? The day you picked up a stray dog?" Emily began to recount the story. "It happened a few years ago. She found a white chihuahua abandoned by a riverbed, not wearing a collar. She brought it home, and it soon became apparent why it had been abandoned. The white chihuahua's hind legs seemed paralyzed and barely moved. A vet visit confirmed it was a genetic condition with no cure. Despite Emily believing her mother, who worked in welfare, would care for the chihuahua, saying, Susan blatantly refused, "Why would we keep a disabled dog?"
I've always remembered that. You hardly ever took care of her, leaving her in the cage while I was at school. Now her front legs have weakened too, and she just sits on the cushion, not barking or moving.
Apparently, due to lack of exercise, Bella's front legs had also weakened.
None of that matters now. Anyway, get out. Today is my wedding, and I want to celebrate it with people I care to be with.
After Emily's stern words, Susan, seemingly lost for words, eventually left the room with heavy footsteps. Unable to see the expressions of others, I sensed the uneasy atmosphere and felt pained. What an ambience I've created at this wedding, I thought, remaining silent and looking down. Eventually, Emily's fiancé quietly called out, "Everyone," and announced, "We will continue with the wedding." The groom declared, "We apologize for the trouble, but there's no need to stop here."
Emily and I are determined to walk through life together, undeterred by such small difficulties, bound by our strong love. We might face tough times in our marriage, but we believe these will be opportunities to deepen our love, and we'll work through them.
Standing beside her fiancé, Emily said, "Everyone, please help us overcome this trouble and make this special day joyous with your smiles." As the priest bowed deeply, a round of applause erupted from the crowd. Standing quietly by the wall, I clapped my hands softly and whispered, "Congratulations on your wedding, Emily." Thanks to the priest's efforts, the wedding proceeded smoothly and turned out to be a very happy occasion for the couple. Subsequent investigations at Susan's workplace revealed that she had been disrespectful to other disabled individuals as well. This led to her dismissal and, compounded by the divorce imposed on her, forced her to move far away. Abandoned by her husband and Emily, Susan is now looking for work in the welfare sector again, but it seems she's facing difficulties as her prejudice against disabled people has become known to others in the field. Once, after the wedding, Susan called me.
How's your life now? Are they doing well? She asked in a trivial conversation, followed by a long silence, then admitted, I regret, blaming the car accident on you and telling everyone about it. I thought I had a perfect life, everything going smoothly, even my daughter getting married, but that accident was a stain on my life.
So. I hung up the phone in the middle of her speaking. I didn't want to talk anymore. As for me, I'm gradually adapting to my situation. There are support services in the neighborhood that I never knew existed when I was able-bodied, and I'm starting to train for daily life with kind help from various support staff. In my room, I started with basic training to prevent stumbling, and then moved on to grooming tasks like brushing teeth and trimming nails. Furthermore, I learned to keep things in specific places to reduce search time, along with various other skills like cooking and laundry. This training encompassed most of my daily life. In this era, even smartphones and tablets have reliable voice recognition features, so I can enjoy music and other features without complex operations. Sitting in a chair, I slowly close my eyes, letting the soothing music permeate my heart. Something fluffy crosses my bare feet. Reaching down, I feel a lick on my fingers. I reach out, trying to find the dog I expect to be there, but Bella isn't there. Reluctantly, I lean back in the chair, and then Bella lets out a soft whimper, a sound I had never heard from her before. It takes me a few seconds to realize it's Bella's bark, and as I stand up, she whimpers softly again. I follow the sound of Bella's whimpers to the window. After feeling around and picking her up, I touch the curtain and feel the warmth of the sun on my cheek.
It's a nice day, isn't it? Yes, let's go for a walk together.
Holding Bella, I open the front door. And the warm sunlight pours down on us.